To her enemies in Europe, she was the Mad Queen of Madagascar, a bloodthirsty tyrant who executed thousands of her own people in insane public spectacles. They called her the female Caligula, a monarch whose cruelty was legendary. But to others, she was a nationalist hero, a queen who used the most extreme measures imaginable as a weapon to protect her island from being conquered by Europe. This is the insane story of Queen Ranavalona I, a ruler who literally slaughtered her subjects to save her kingdom. So, was she a monster or a patriot? And how in the world did she hold off all of Europe for over 30 years? The 19th century was an absolute feeding frenzy of colonial expansion. European powers were carving up entire continents, and the island of Madagascar, with its perfect spot in the Indian Ocean, was a top prize. And right in the middle of this global power struggle is a woman who was never supposed to rule, who would seize the throne and create a legacy written in blood and defiance. Her entire reign boils down to one brutal question: how much is a nation's freedom worth? And what price is too high to pay to stay independent? Her story is wild. It challenges everything you think you know about leadership, sacrifice, and the insane math of survival. If you enjoy stories about the most extreme figures in history who walk that razor's edge between villain and visionary, hit that subscribe button for more histories that changed our world. Ranavalona's rise to power was insanely fast and super bloody. Born around 1788, she was a total commoner, not royal at all. Her entry into the halls of power was a complete fluke. Her dad uncovered a plot to assassinate the future king, and as a massive reward, she was adopted into the royal family and married to the heir, Prince Radama. When her husband became King Radama I, he was all in on Europe. He signed treaties with the British, welcomed Christian missionaries, and started to modernize his kingdom just like the West. Ramavo, however, just watched from the sidelines, surrounded by traditionalists who thought these changes were a disease that would destroy their ancient traditions. Radama didn't have any kids with Ranavalona, so he named his young nephew as the next king. Ranavalona's future looked terrible. She was going to be the forgotten widow of a king. But in 1828, King Radama I died, officially from an illness, but rumors have always swirled that he was poisoned. Ranavalona did not hesitate. Before the king's body was even cold, she made her move with breathtaking speed and ruthlessness. Backed by powerful military leaders and priests of the traditional religion, she declared herself the new queen, claiming it was her husband's dying wish. Anyone who disagreed was about to be eliminated. The chosen heir, the king's nephew, was first on her list. He was hunted down and speared to death. Gone. His mother suffered a fate that was just as horrible. To avoid the taboo of spilling a royal woman's blood, they just starved her to death instead. One by one, Radama's entire family, cousins, brothers, anyone with even a tiny claim to the throne, was captured and executed. It was a purge of terrifying efficiency. At her coronation, wearing the royal scarlet, Ranavalona made her plan crystal clear. Never say, "She is only a feeble and ignorant woman. How can she rule such a vast empire?" she declared. "I will rule here. I will worship no gods but those of my ancestors. The ocean shall be the boundary of my realm, and I will not cede the thickness of one hair of my realm." The woman who was never meant to be queen had just taken power by washing the throne in the blood of her rivals. Now that she secured her throne, Queen Ranavalona immediately started to destroy her husband's legacy. Her reign became a total rejection of European influence and a violent return to Malagasy tradition. She saw the schools, the trade deals, and especially the new religion of Christianity not as progress, but as a cultural poison. One of her first huge moves was to literally tear up the treaties her husband had signed with Great Britain. This was a bold and incredibly dangerous decision. She was signaling to the world's biggest naval power that Madagascar was closed for business. The flow of European money and advisors slowed to a tiny trickle as Ranavalona deliberately locked down her kingdom to make it self-sufficient. Her main target, however, was Christianity. She viewed it as a direct threat to her power, which was based on worshiping royal ancestors and traditional gods. In her eyes, Christians were loyal to a foreign god, so they could never be loyal to her. The pressure started small. In 1831, she banned Christian marriages and baptisms for soldiers, but she ran out of patience fast. In a massive public speech in 1835, Ranavalona made her position absolute. Practicing Christianity was now forbidden for any of her subjects. Foreigners could believe whatever they wanted, but her people had to follow the old ways or face the consequences. Missionaries were kicked out, and the churches they had built were all shut down. Within a year, almost every foreigner had fled the island. For the growing number of Malagasy Christians, this was the start of a long and brutal persecution. They were forced to practice their faith in secret, becoming criminals in their own country. Ranavalona had slammed the door on Europe, restoring power to the traditional nobles who had helped her take the throne. She was building a fortress around her kingdom, not with stone, but with policy and pure fear. The message was unmistakable. Madagascar belonged to the Malagasy, and any foreign influence would be violently destroyed. To keep control and enforce her lockdown policies, Queen Ranavalona unleashed one of the most infamous reigns of terror ever. Her methods were designed to make people absolutely obedient through pure, unfiltered fear. At the very heart of her justice system was the Tangina ordeal. This was a trial by poison, where the accused was forced to eat a toxic poison from the nut of a local tree. The process was horrifyingly specific. You were fed the poison along with 3 pieces of chicken skin. If you managed to vomit up all 3 pieces of skin, you were declared innocent. If you failed or just died from the poison, your guilt was proven. And if you somehow survived that, you were immediately executed anyway. This wasn't some rare, crazy punishment. It became a massive tool of the state. Anyone could accuse someone else of a crime, theft, witchcraft, or being a Christian, and the poison ordeal would decide if they lived or died. The belief in it was so strong that many people willingly did it, convinced it was a true test from the ancestors. The death toll was staggering. It's estimated that in just 1 year, 1838, as many as 100,000 people died from the Tangina ordeal. That was a shocking 20% of the entire population of the Central Highlands. On top of this judicial terror was Whanampoana, a system of forced labor that was basically a tax. People were forced to work on the Queen's huge public projects, building roads, palaces, and most importantly, military forts. This labor was often deadly. In one insane case from 1845, the Queen ordered a royal buffalo hunt that was really just a massive road-building project. She forced 50,000 of her subjects to join her, and an estimated 10,000 men, women, and children died from starvation and exhaustion during the 4-month project. 10,000 people. For those who openly defied her, the punishments were public spectacles of pure cruelty. Christian converts were targeted the most. In one famous case, over a dozen Christians were martyred, with some dangled by ropes over a giant cliff until the ropes were cut, sending them falling to their deaths. Ranavalona didn't just punish people who disagreed with her. She made a theater out of it, making sure everyone saw the price of defiance. The combined result of her policies was a complete catastrophe. Constant war, the brutal forced labor, disease, and the endless poison ordeals absolutely decimated the island. Some historians estimate that during her 33-year reign, the population of Madagascar was cut in half, dropping from around 5 million people to just 2.5 million. Ranavalona was securing her kingdom, but she was slaughtering its people to do it. Okay, so her policies at home were unbelievably brutal, but they were created because she was under a constant external threat. From Ranavalona's perspective, her cruelty was a necessary tool for survival. The 19th century was the peak of the scramble for Africa, and she saw exactly what was happening to other nations that didn't resist Europe. You can see her entire 33-year reign as one long battle to stop Madagascar from being taken over. Her defiance wasn't just talk, it was backed by a powerful military. When the French, who were angry that she ripped up their treaties, attacked the coastal town of Full Point in 1829, her army was ready. They successfully fought off the invasion, partly because malaria broke out among the French troops. But Ranavalona didn't just want to win, she wanted to send a message. The heads of the dead French soldiers were put on pikes all along the coastline, a gruesome warning to any other European country that was thinking about invading. The queen knew that to have political independence, you needed economic independence. She pushed a policy of total self-sufficiency to get Madagascar off of European imports. To do this, she made a surprisingly smart move. She got help from a shipwrecked Frenchman named Jean Laborde. Even though she was kicking almost all other foreigners out, she saw Laborde had skills and put him to work. Using forced local labor, Laborde built a massive industrial center with factories that produced soap, tools, and most importantly, modern weapons like muskets and cannons for the Queen's army. This was selective modernization on her terms, literally using European knowledge to build the weapons to fight Europeans. She also became a master at playing her enemies against each other, especially the British and French. By never fully siding with either one, she kept them both guessing, stopping either one from getting a real foothold on the island. Through this mix of military threats, industrial self-sufficiency, and genius diplomacy, Ranavalona did what almost no other African ruler of her time could. For her entire 33-year reign, she successfully defended Madagascar's independence. While the rest of the continent was being colonized, Madagascar remained a fortress, independent and unbowed. Her methods were savage, but from a purely political view, they were undeniably effective. She wasn't just a tyrant, she was a strategist and the architect of one of the 19th century's most successful stands against colonialism. So, the picture gets way more complicated, right? The mad queen who slaughtered her own people was also the brilliant strategist who kept powerful empires at arm's length. What do you guys think so far? Is this the story of a monster or a patriot? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and if you're finding this complex history as fascinating as we do, smash that like button. Ranavalona I ruled until she died of natural causes, passing away peacefully in her sleep in 1861 at around 83 years old. She had outlasted all of her enemies and died the queen of an independent nation. Her funeral was absolutely massive. 12,000 cattle were slaughtered in her honor, and the official mourning lasted for 9 months. But here's the craziest part. The fortress she had built crumbled almost immediately after she was gone. Her son, Rakoto, took the throne as Radama II. He had secretly been working with the French while his mother was alive, and he held the exact opposite views. He immediately reversed all of her isolationist policies, reopening the island to European traders and missionaries and giving away huge deals to foreign companies. The old guard at court, the same group that had backed Ranavalona's traditionalist rule, was horrified. Radama the Duke's reign didn't last long. He was assassinated just 2 years after becoming king. His death threw Madagascar into chaos. A series of weaker rulers came next, and the defenses Ranavalona had maintained for over 3 decades completely fell apart. The British and French influence she had fought so hard to destroy came flooding back in. In 1896, just 35 years after her death, Madagascar was officially colonized by the French. The very fate she had dedicated her brutal reign to preventing had come to pass. So, we come back to the central question. Was Queen Ranavalona a tyrant or a savior? The answer is still as divided as her legacy. To her European contemporaries and the Christian missionaries she persecuted, she was an insane, bloodthirsty monster. The staggering death toll under her rule, which possibly cut the island's population in half, is a testament to the unimaginable suffering she inflicted on her own people. Her methods of control, the poison ordeal, the deadly forced labor, the public executions, were instruments of pure terror. But when you look at it in the context of 19th century colonial expansion, her actions look completely different. She is also remembered as a fierce nationalist, one of the few African monarchs who successfully stared down European empires and kept her nation free. Her cruelty had a purpose. It was a calculated strategy to maintain her culture and political freedom against a massive threat. While other kingdoms fell, Madagascar, under her iron fist, stood defiant. Even today in Madagascar, her memory is complicated. Some condemn her brutality, while others admire her as a symbol of strength and resistance, a leader who did whatever was necessary to protect the nation's identity. Ultimately, Ranavalona's story holds up a dark mirror, reflecting the brutal choices leaders are sometimes forced to make when a nation's survival is on the line. She remains one of history's most unsettling and polarizing figures, a queen who built her kingdom's independence on a foundation of corpses. Was the survival of a nation worth the slaughter of its people? Was Ranavalona a necessary evil, or just evil? That is a question that history even now can't definitively answer.